Good evening, everyone. You didn't get to see the ping bars, but they are messing around today. Welcome to another Mish-Mashing Battle Lounge with the 2MK team. For some of us, this is just standard practice. For some of us, this is part of preparations for tournament. But as tournaments are going to be more common and a lot more of them, we usually go to about 4 a year when we can manage. We are expecting to only get 3 in this year. We tend to count Combo Breaker itself as the start of a season, let's say, because it is the first tournament we usually go to after CPT stuff. And a bunch of other smaller ones in there, generally East Coast stuff, as this is an Atlantic Rim style lobby. Though this is the EU stream and therefore the EU centric lobby overall. Let's see. No, it doesn't look particularly laggy. I don't know what was up with them. That knockdown would have been worth it had I gone for it. Today we're not working on anything in particular. Feel free to join in and cause us to work on something in particular. Don't pay too much attention to the ping values either. I don't know what's up with those. But obviously, since there is at least some limit to who can join into it, not everyone will be able to get in. I still need to work on the input for that weird option select. It's not a true option select, as this game contains nearly none of those. I'm referring to the fact that there are ways to improve your inputs themselves, so that if you drop one thing, something else that might still defend you will happen. Chun-Li in particular has a lot of this because of the way that the priority on her moves are relative to throws. So ready. Again, so ready. Nope, not getting through today. And even though I had no meter, I wouldn't allow that one. Makes sense. That was a drop. And on my side as well.
Round 2. Fight.
The neutral jump, for example, was the sort of thing I was talking about. Although it might have all been happening too fast to properly notice. Yeah, I don't know what that ping means. Hopefully it's not bad. Geographically, the two stations we're using here are very close together. But networking, and any networking experts out there would probably be able to tell you that that does not mean a lot, especially depending on where the traffic has to pass through. It could be just a long-term ping out to some routing position between who even knows. I had the sudden urge to pick Sakura's stage, but I didn't. I believe on the last stream we discussed a little bit about this matchup, but we're specifically covering some extra aspects of it for now. The difference between the style of Chun-Li players, given the way the character tends to need to be played at higher levels, you can decide what you think of my play of her, is the speed and the amount of attacking they do. Some people attack way more often because they think they will get away with it, or they've developed specific strategies around attacking a lot. And others can't do this at all. Yep, it is flickery today. Have no idea why though. No one is putting up with my stuff today. Bison, one of the few characters in this game that can not only whiff punish stand heavy kick, will whiff punish it in a way that actually hurts. Would I have gotten out of that? I intended to hit crouch heavy punch there, but I feel like my opponent would have retargeted that devil reverse in time. If you're going to be playing extremely aggressively on any character, you have to be ready to be hit for it a lot. And being comfortable with that is where you build up all your offensive skill is not the right word. Moxie? Ooh, the heavy kick, knowing that that was coming. Because of that difference in speed and the fact that almost all of her moves are simply, I have about 2 to 3 options at this space. I have an option for nearly every space. The thing you need to understand to fight this character, therefore, and the reason why she is by most people's standards top tier, is because she's relatively easier to win with if you have become good at playing her and are good at measuring distance. Because if you are good enough at measuring distance, you can't be punished as consistently as most people might think you can. When you mess up the spacings, you get punished, in short. But there's a lot of space where Chun-Li just gets to do as she likes. And those two things are basically the combination of what makes a character I like. I can do what I want if my spacing is correct, and I have an answer for basically everything. Whether or not the answer is a good answer depends on the player I'm up against, and I have to think about that, but overall, yeah. Ooh, out of range for that. I think Just Fine saw that coming. One of the main reasons you might want to do that, for example, is because depending on the hitbox of your opponent's moves, the EX legs will trade with it. So it could in times be worth it, depending on the level of difficulty of the match and the stress that your opponent is putting you under, to use all of your meter to guarantee a punish with the same timing. But that will definitely actually be a whiff punish instead of, okay, this traded, now I'm too close and I don't know what to do. Dropped it. That comboing is definitely a good thing for this character. And I have no idea if I functionally got crossed up there, if I was just too late on pressing back again.
Final round. Fight.
No meter to finish. But given my options, my opponent knew what I was going to go for, and I should have been thinking about that fact. I had just been knocked down. My opponent therefore can check my meter and decide, you're probably going to go for something low that I can beat. Therefore, the correct answer to that situation, especially given that spacing, would have been wake up, instant medium air legs.
Fight.
I didn't not do that because of any specific thing. It wasn't just, oh, I don't know what to do here. But I believe we saw on our last NA stream the issue of Chun-Li players that get too far away from Bison being basically fodder for being jumped on. You'll notice therefore that I'm basically never in that space. I don't feel like trying to anti-air Bison at all. And therefore, just don't stand there. I forgot I was in V-trigger. Thought it was going to be a backdash. Right through the attack. Right through that one too. Of course, there is always the answer to the situation of doing nothing because you believe your opponent is going to hang themselves if you leave them alone for long enough. And this one is the one that people get more used to as they fight more people online. I'm not sure it's necessarily the better response to have though. It definitely works better against players who get frustrated fighting the character. But people who aren't easily frustrated will spend the time given by you standing still a lot more cleanly. Not enough. It is actually because of this that you find high-level Chun-Li players basically don't want to play this character online if they can help it, or will restrict the connections for who they're willing to fight to basically absolute maximum. Because unlike many characters where the rollback of did a combo happen, did my opponent do this move, those are the things that decide whether or not you're actually getting to do what you intend. And sometimes drops are a big deal. You use up more meter than you wanted to without getting damage, or you use an unsafe move and just end up dying. Fortunately, these things happen at the spacing level, which means that the little bits of jitter of someone who is trying to play footsies properly and make sure to move just in and out of range, the problem increases before any moves are actually even done, since you can't maintain perfect spacing if you can't keep track of it. With enough practice, you can build up some expectations for what that means. You do the precise thing in the precise space. But enough about that. On to Akuma versus Armika, which I've seen Just Fine try to play this at higher levels once or twice. For some reason, she never seems to find like high-level Akuma other than Sun to like fight against. So it's harder to say what is and is not working. But a lot of it seems to be based on understanding that Akuma players generally need to move away from Mika at least a bit. Partially this is because of health, and partially it's because more and more she's seemingly getting stronger and stronger whiff punishes against stuff Akuma does. And because her power is so generally devastating in certain ways, you can't just decide, oh, I'm just going to uppercut out of this, because if you're wrong, you will die. Similarly, the spaces and stances that Akuma wants to stand at are often the ones where, even though he can counter her charged heavy kick, her charged drop kick, he suffers a lot by the mix-up of did I charge it or not, relative to other characters. Maneuvering through the fireballs here. But part of the reason why this is hard is because whenever Akuma needs to back off, if that time does come, especially now with the buffs to the amount of time it takes for Mika to use the mic drop, she can just use it more or less easily. So you can see immediately that Sun is used to this and won't just give up space because it's safer. And that's a style decision. Because the only thing I was mentioning relative to this is, if you push too hard, you may die faster. And if the decision is, well, fine, I don't care, I don't want to have to deal with the whole mic game, you do have the option of just not letting up, and therefore risking dying faster. But it's still just that. You're only risking it, you're not guaranteeing it, because it's not that the way you're playing is going to definitely lead to errors. And Mika isn't the sort of character where she can generally trick you a whole lot. It's more so you doing something like this because it seems like the correct thing for whatever reason to prevent a problem, and her blocking. That's basically it. As you can see, it makes the match kind of volatile and swingy from the outside perspective, but these two probably have a fairly clear idea of what's happening and why it's happening the way it is happening. But that buff is large. The fact that she can just respond to a bunch of Akuma moves now with that mic. Interestingly though, nearly none of the moves she can respond to with it now in terms of armoring end up being moves where she actually hits Akuma with the drop. So I can't really say that it's definitely Akuma's going to take a lot more damage as a result of this buff. It's that Mika can spend less time thinking about whether or not she should use the mic. Which I guess is good, because anything that lets you de-stress in those situations is a positive. This is compounded, of course, by being able to build up more V-meter, which is the real benefit of this. The more V-meter she can build up, the more Akuma has to worry about a bunch of other things. Specifically, he's a relatively easy character to V-reversal when going all in, and particularly when meter is low, V-reversal from Mika that hits. There are a lot of characters where their moves can't be V-reversaled by her easily. She will just whiff the kick grab part, but Akuma is really not one of those characters. In general, if Akuma does pretty much any move and gets V-reversaled, he's going to have to deal with all of the follow-ups that come from it. Ooh, spacing. I have no idea how laggy they are to each other, so it is entirely possible that these are drops based on that. Ooh, didn't have the EX ready. By that I mean the EX wingless airplane, which does in fact go through Akuma's air fireball. But there's not much I can do about this. We don't know. It's not normally bad. Sometimes it's really great. Sometimes it's eh. Which makes sense given that we are basically on the other side of the ocean. But we do occasionally get, let's call it proper EU people joining. This is a Win 10 Battle Lounge matches week, meaning that at least for tonight's stream, on the NA side, we're expecting to see more people, probably. That light kick though. That light kick. Still really hard to pull that one off though. That is not a decision I expected at all. No quick rise, resolving the main problem with Mika doing that to you. That applies probably across all matchups. If you feel as if you're going to be in danger after being V-reversal by Mika, just don't quick rise. I'm sure that Mika players, because they are usually lab monsters relative to meaties, if they're at the point where they're thinking about it at all. If you had to care about whether or not your quick rise was going to kill you against her V-reversal, then bear in mind, of course, that there's probably still something that will get you the other way around. But it does take a lot more work to do the recognition and so on. Therefore, in the end, always take the option that stresses your opponent out as much as possible. Understanding which thing stresses them out is a matter of understanding psychology and watching a lot of matches, presumably with the person, but sometimes not. But overall, you're still hoping for the same sorts of things. V-meter already basically up there. Oh, I was wondering what that was for. But once I saw the meaty, it was clearer. This character's movement, though. Mika's always slipping between things Akuma does. So, as an Akuma player, you should generally be ready for that to happen. That applies to a lot of matchups, actually. Not because Akuma's moves don't necessarily hit, but simply that that's one of the first things people learn against this character. How to try to do something unexpected either in response or right after Akuma has gone for something meant to pressure you or lock you down in some way. Therefore, the less mental commitment you have to any of your moves hitting as an Akuma player, often the more effective you are. That applies to lots of people, but because close-range characters have to spend so much more time in unexpected but dangerous situations, it helps if you can be somewhat calm, or just devil may care about it, just ignore the fact that you might be about to get hurt. and just go with whatever instinct you have for how to resolve the situation. At least you'll get the data of, oh, that doesn't work. But the complexity of that goes up more and more as you fight other similar characters, because the little precise aspects of the situation shift around a lot. To the point where even explaining what the two of us are thinking to do in most of these matches is borderline impossible. Because no, that's not a bet. That's me expecting to be able to whiff punish with the V skill and then doing that. And of course, I somewhat enjoy this because somehow you just keep on getting faster and faster. You don't spend as much time thinking about what's possible or not possible. You just keep going. This is bad when you can't confirm your attacks or aren't the sort of person who is patient enough to bother, but it's surely a lot of fun. Spacing was off. I have totally forgotten the frame data on that, so I hope that whatever I just did was correct in some way and my body just remembered it. Couldn't get that one. Similarly, getting hit by that specific fireball is actually a thing I have a reason to let happen under certain circumstances. Because the capacity to make the decision of what follow-up to use comes so late that taking the hit from the fireball can cause enough pushback to just not be in the way of the normal follow-up that you would use. If you expected me to block it, then the follow-up Sun just used is correct, but if I don't block it, then that's it. You just whiff, and I can know this and see the whiff punish timing. That was definitely too risky. And that was misspaced, but once again you get the situation where in order for that to be a problem, my opponent would have to know that it was misspaced. Which means at the moment, the lag is favoring me, even if it's not that bad. Don't know why I thought dashing there was going to be a good idea.
You win.
I would say that we are high octane like this all the time, but nah, this is actually one of our slower days. I know it's one of our slower days because I can see what's happening. Or it could just be that the ping is not really representative of anything and the lag isn't that stuttery, at least between us two. Unfortunately, training in the lag will not necessarily give you much of a preparation for lagless situations. Once you've gotten to the point of being able to see things well enough, I don't actually think it's good for you at all to train in lag. We just play online a lot, so if you want to enter online tournaments, you have to train for lag. You have to understand the lag. You have to understand different types of lag. But if you have a strong offline scene, I wouldn't necessarily, especially if you're like getting to the upper levels, basically, let's assume you have a tournament of 16 people and you manage to go 2-2 or something, I would definitely not suggest, yeah, it's to your advantage to train in lag. It doesn't do you any good. I don't think so. I think I went too far on that one. And my big error there was not taking the time to check the meter during the slow period, mostly because there was no slow period to check meter in. I can get better at it, checking meter during longer attacks, like quite literally hitting stand heavy kick and using the animation time of that move just alone to check meter, but this can be hard to remember to do. Well, no, the lag seems to be gone now. I deserve that. I deserve that too. Certain specials are fast enough to be used as whiff punishes when your spacing is perfect, simply because if you know your opponent's character's options, they don't have anything crazy they can do to move toward you, any movement means you can whiff punish with that move. Bison's EX scissor kick is one such move, and Chun-Li's light spinning bird kick is another such move. Any movement at a specific spacing is, I'm whiff punishing this now. And since there's no motion to mess up, it's just literally, I was holding down back, I saw you move, I pressed this, the end. It is one of the strengths of charge characters in this game. Okay, every single thing I would have chosen in that space would have been beaten by that. I have another option, but I never choose it, so... I think I'm supposed to jump after those. Oh, I let myself get to the jumping spacing. And I didn't even realize that was happening. that was another good example of the type of high effort corner guard that this requires. I had to keep on staying one step ahead of my opponent. She made the decision to counter the move I did always one step late. Every single thing she did would have countered an option I was using. It's just that usually I chose the option one step before she reached that rotation part of the counter, I guess. But aggressive corner guard like that does have the potential to backfire on you spectacularly, particularly on a character that can literally dash through your normals. Spacing once again. I really need to remember to use light legs for that. Still got thrown. That was even more massive adaptation. I know my opponent trains to V-reversal that. And I know their mind is on, I'm going to V-reversal that. And then realizing you have V trigger active, you're not able to V-reversal this, therefore I'm going to go for this big bet now. Similarly, that parry was perfectly done because chances are I was not in range to hit anything else. The worst that would have been worried about was a crouching medium kick, which is valid, but it's still worth betting on the parry. Because if I hit anything else, problem solved. Okay, that used up all the meter, but my spacing was off once again. Being this aggressive and being really consistent at it does allow you to keep control of the spacing between the characters for a really long time. You have to reset yourself every time something you didn't expect happens. But sometimes even taking the hit is something you understand even if you don't necessarily expect it. Oh wait, that's not how that goes. And I'm really not supposed to do that. I think that was an attempted parry and it just didn't work. Which also could make sense because I threw medium Kikoken because I've been training myself over and over to throw medium Kikoken. The other two get countered in all sorts of weird specific timeout ways at the ranges I like to fight at.
It's go time. Let's do this.
Honestly, this is so intense today that I'm literally not even remembering what I'm saying. Partially because I came into this with no specific plan of a topic to target in terms of what I'm talking about. So you're just getting my thought flow from whatever I happen to be doing on screen at the time, which can be really good if you care a lot about little aspects of fighting game thinking or this matchup. But I'll definitely try to have more of a target tonight for the NA stream. I was expecting Sun to block that Kikoken, I feel. I am getting so... I really need to practice that one because I know you can throw it, but I never throw it anymore. My opponent's timing is always just a little bit different, and I'm reasonably sure it's not the lag that's making it impossible for me to do that. I never get away with that move anymore. But I can't risk doing that because the execution for the two is completely different to me. Doing medium air lags perfectly is very different than doing the light air lags perfectly. Let's keep on being back jumps and therefore messing with my flow. Okay, at least now I have corner guard. There we go. Well, rather, the humph is what probably Akuma said at that moment. But now I've learned a thing. I actually never think about how far forward that move tries to go exactly, because it goes fairly far. But it could have been aiming at where Akuma was, even in the teleport stance, and therefore started the kicking early. I've not been countered by that one in a while. Move 2+ for that. Light Kikoken. Yes, that will work every time. It's precisely because I think you can get it so that the invincibility frames will let you get away with it if you immediately do another invincible uppercut. But I'm actually not sure of that. I think you might just have to get hit.
Round 1.
But I'm sure that through the many times Sun and I fight, eventually we will know which of those things is true. Because we're the type. For those of you who don't know, it is in fact possible to make Chun-Li's forward heavy kick, that big sweeping body kick. It is possible to make that +1. But doing it by eyeballing it is hard. Ow. Yeah, see that? Super might have helped, but ES lags will normally just trade off somewhere.
You win.
Oh no, I have a defense score. I'm just joking, that is more a testament to my opponent's skill, because most people can't make me actually get defense score. Most people I play at my level cannot get me into defense score. Diamond players can usually get me a little bit. Platinum players, a few can. But again, I don't generally judge people by rank often enough, especially not in like battle lounges. And I'm not high enough into gold to end up fighting people in platinum in ranked, so it doesn't really come up. I have to wait for them to show up to lounges. Fortunately, we do see a lot more people coming in, I guess partially because we put serious match. I'm going to hope that people do in fact watch these streams, even if just to pass the time, and might be inspired to join us simply because we are not going to play in some annoying way. So we do get to get some additional practice in those cases. Let's see. No. Definitely no. Okay, now I can see a nerf. But it's good that Just Vine now has that information. I do not believe that would have been reasonable to attempt before, because the second hit would have happened too quickly for a reasonable person to go for the parry and get it. But with the new delay on the second hit of her crouch heavy punch, I'd say it's more reasonable to go for the parry when you see it coming at you like that. However, it's now stuttery again, so I can't be sure. Still, having done it once is still good enough for most purposes. And I'm willing to bet, given the animation and the way that move hits, that yes, Bison now can... Chun-Li players must now be more serious and more cautious, because I've explained many times that I believe one can just use crouch heavy punch against Bison if you think Bison is going to advance in any way, with the only thing really stopping you being the specifics of the cycle axe. Oof. But to be able to just parry that now, that seems cool. Because before, Bison had to rely on the fact that Chun-Li has specific spacings where he can step out of the way or do something else against the crouch heavy punch if he expects it. But if he wasn't expecting it and freezes up, basically continues to hold down back, the way the move will hit, even though it was minus before, meant that he couldn't do that much about it. Now, therefore, you have both options. You can see it coming and therefore have more time to make sure that you do respond correctly. Namely, usually by stand blocking suddenly or trying to walk backwards because the move does hit mid, so you don't actually care. And now, presumably, to just see it coming and decide to parry it. That flutter, I think, was going to be the answer either way. Because for that to hit, my opponent had to hit the V-trigger activation at a timing where I had already decided to hit the medium kick. There was no other decision to make. I can feel these matches in like my wrists now. Not in the bad way, like nerves reacting to all of the things going on. You might be wondering why my opponent basically never anti-airs me. Because 90% of my jumps in this matchup are fakes. I'm not trying to kick, like, I don't think I've left the ground with the intention to actually kick Bison even once so far today. If you hit the attack Bison can anti-air you. If you don't hit the attack, there are many situations in which Bison's anti-air misses. And because Bison's anti-air has such a long relative animation, you get all sorts of weird stuff that Chun-Li can do afterwards. I'm hoping this doesn't become a problem for Just Fine later, simply because it's so likely that someone will jump with the real intent to jump. Did I need to cancel that? No, I think I would have lost that either way, because that's -1. Yeah.
Round 2. Fight.
This isn't to say that the Crouch Heavy Punch has lost any of its real effectiveness in the matchup. Ah, I should have believed. There! I finally jumped with the intention of actually hitting. And again. And you can see in both cases I still got hit. Granted, it took meter to do it, but it was still a moment of, okay, that spacing, that mindset, you are actually going to jump at me now. Bison wins out by superior throw range. And yes, I big bet, because why not? That is in fact an actual mix-up if I'm on point enough, because I can do instant head stomp from there. But now the flutter is probably actually causing issues. Okay, gonna use the meter this time, because that will, yes, there we go. My opponent was close to stun, therefore I went for the fake, throwing medium Kikoken instead of light. I don't actually remember whether or not this helps me get the throw, because it's not always the throw I'm supposed to go for. So technically I think I made a mistake there and would probably have died against a different opponent. The sort of person who's jumpy enough to assume that they can get out, who isn't used to me trying to trick them at literally every turn.
Let's do this.
Well, that went by about as fast as it normally does, or normally feels like. And I believe this is going to be the last on-stream match of the night, even if it doesn't go 2-1 in terms of the set. Our upcoming content will be as its new standard, its new usual, with Tuesday Melt, some Melty Blood tomorrow. EU stream is pending. I think we normally get some people sometimes, but I think last time we didn't. Either way, we will most likely not be having Wednesday Night in Birth, either the EU or the NA stream, for various reasons. Combo Breaker being part of it, but just general stuff to do otherwise. Keep on dropping that, and I don't have any good reason to drop it either. Chun-Li now has quote-unquote better combos out of there, but they're very spacing dependent and I haven't learned them all yet. Therefore you can expect us to skip Wednesday and have our Feeling Thursday KOF Battle Lounge. I feel like this jitter is making this... oh, maybe not. See, I should let myself get hit by that, but I think the follow-up worked anyway. My opponents are putting up with none of my shenanigans today on any of my ES moves.
You win.
Which is probably good. Because as an overall thing in this matchup, the longer Chun-Li has control, the less chances there are for you to get an easy convert into V-trigger into kill. Some characters can do it because they have very, very long moves that they can convert from and still get good damage. But Bison and Akuma are not usually in that category. Chun-Li is usually the one more heavily in control of whether or not that gets to work. Drop the cancel because I wasn't expecting it to work. That meaning explicitly, by the time I realized it did work, I was not in the timing to do the cancel properly anymore, because you have to do the cancel early or you're technically actually not plus yet. It won't even combo. So yeah, see that. The other move you can do, I believe, will also sort of whiff, but whiff worse. I have to check that though, because I might be wrong. I feel like it was dropped execution because I saw a reversal, but I can't think of what reversal would have failed. Sun normally either wakes up with uppercut or doesn't do anything. Okay. I'm not sure if that was an option select T-style move or what. No, I'm definitely getting countered, which means I'm definitely outright missing that. Okay, got it. Never assume that your opponent can't mash out of stun, even if that situation comes up. Especially when the stun was achieved by trading. Because I think this is one of those games where you get to start mashing out of stun from the moment the hit happens, not from the moment you stand up after the stun. I should look into that because it's probably somewhere deep in the lore, let's say, understanding of this game. There's probably someone out there who knows. If you do, this video is on YouTube, presumably at some point. Leave the comment to let me know that yes, in fact, that is how that works. Because it is a big deal for a lot of situations. Yes, Chun-Li will duck under Tatsu's by using her stand heavy punch. Why? Because she's a broken character in certain ways, I guess? I deserve that. I deserve that too. I deserve that less.
Round 2.
but I did telegraph some things in that spacing, and therefore that was at least one option for what would have happened there. This lounge is under Sun Tier's control, and therefore I don't know when it is closing. I'm probably not continuing. My body again is definitely already feeling this. I can't say why, as I haven't necessarily had that much trouble with this recently. I think you can uppercut out of that, and I wanted to know whether or not one could uppercut out of that, but I don't think my opponent uppercut. Either way, join us on Saturday for another 60 times DOA Battle Lounge, or possibly 2. And on Sunday for more Absolver content, bringing us right back around to another Monday Mish-Mashing Battle Lounge. You can find all of our practice bots, as we call them, at our website 2-mk.org. And you can keep track of our stream timings and announcements about bots on 2_mk_FGC on Twitter. This has been Rillian for Team 2MK. Good luck with your training and good night, everyone.